Good morning. I'm Andrew Lansley, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this, the 22nd Beyond Borders Breakfast Debate, where today we are exploring the potential and challenges of cross-border energy communities. I'm counsel to Low Associates, and it's our great privilege to work with our colleagues at DG REGIO in support of the Border Focal Point Network. I must say, these breakfast debates are always an inspiration in these troubled times when sometimes conflict resolves around borders. It's an inspiration, I think, to all of us to see how across Europe there are so many communities that are working across borders to provide positive opportunities for their communities on both sides of a border through working closely together. And today we look at that very interesting, very challenging subject sometimes of energy, its generation, its distribution, its use, its contribution to resolving our climate change challenges, and of course, not least, providing consumers and the people we serve with good quality energy supply at an affordable price. All very challenging issues that I hope we're going to hear much more about today. We're looking particularly forward to hearing from Bernd, Schuh, and the work that has been done on the Handbook on cross-border energy communities. But first, I need just to remind, please, all of our participants, and especially those who haven't been with us at a breakfast debate before, this is a participative event. We welcome your questions and indeed links and references that will be put up on our chat function, and I'll be keeping an eye on that for our questions for our panel discussion later. The session will also have two polls, one shortly which will ask some specific questions about the benefits of cross-border energy communities, and then later one that looks at what level of local support is required to help establish cross-border energy communities. So we're looking forward very much to your views in the chat, through the questions, and in those two polls. First, however, I'm delighted to introduce Delia Bonsignore from DG REGIO. Delia, would you be kind enough, please, to give us the context to our cross-border energy communities and how the DG REGIO is able to give support to them?
Yes, thank you, dear Andrew. Dear all, good morning. It's really a pleasure to be here to walk you through the DG REGIO work on and support to cross-border energy communities. Let me start by what led us to work on this specific field. In 2021, the European Commission published a report that is titled EU Border Regions, Living Labs of European Integration. And this report highlighted the need to focus our actions in supporting border regions in achieving the objectives of the Green Deal among 4 clusters for action that were identified. And in this context, the report recognizes also that energy markets do not yet function across borders as seamlessly as they do within a country. And this is more visible whenever we speak about low voltage exchange of electricity across the border. Energy communities do help us tackle the climate crisis. They put citizens at the core of the green and energy transition. They also allow to build more cohesive communities that are more resilient to shocks and to future shocks. So cross-border energy communities are really concrete examples of European integration and cohesion. They allow for the sharing of resources, experience, know-how across borders, and they also create or maximize the potential for local energy production and consumption for communities living close to the border. We have Interreg programs that are well known already from our audience that can support cross-border energy communities through namely Cohesion Policy Objective 2.2 that allows for investments on cross-border energy community projects. But also Interreg specific Objective 1 on better cooperation governance can support this type of projects since it contributes to solving legal and administrative obstacles and to fostering better cross-border governance. I want to mention also the possibility of using Cohesion Policy Objective 5 that allows to respond to multi-sectorial challenges through integrated territorial strategies. And this can potentially support cross-border energy communities as part of these integrated territorial strategies. Other tools, such as, for instance, small project funds and people-to-people projects under Interreg contribute to very local action and also citizens' engagement. So they can also be vehicles for supporting these communities community energy projects. Notwithstanding these opportunities already existing under the umbrella of Interreg for financial support, what we see is that in the actual implementation of these projects across borders, citizens and local actors face legal and administrative challenges, which is what we call the border obstacles, among other challenges of other nature. Then Bernd will go more in detail into that. And this is really where our support comes into place, because breaking down these barriers is at the core of our policy, European territorial cooperation, and this is why our border focal point team in DG REGIO is working on facilitating the establishment of cross-border energy communities. As a starting point, after an initial mapping of initiatives and potentials, and also thanks to the cooperation with DG ENER, we organized 3 capacity and community building workshops dedicated to cross-border energy communities in the framework umbrella of the DG ENER Rural Energy Community Advisory Hub. So this for us was a first action to start building on cross-border energy communities. And also in January 2025, so quite recently, we published the Handbook on cross-border energy communities, which will be further tackled by Bernd later today. And all of this forms part really of our actions in support to cross-border cooperation beyond Interreg funding. And it was developed to ensure the citizens and local actors in border regions are supported in strengthening their own capacity to produce and consume renewable energy. The handbook aims to provide border communities with information that will help them to set up these cross-border energy projects, but taking into account their complex environment. We already know when we tackle cross-border cooperation, we have difference of languages, different laws, administrations, and regulations, just to name a few. And in doing so, the handbook addresses questions such as what is meant by cross-border energy community? What are the forms of cooperation and its benefits? And are there existing cases and how they can be replicable in other EU border regions? But also, what are the obstacles to cross-border cooperation in this field? And how can they be solved? The handbook also provides good practice examples, for instance, on community building aspects and business models. So this will all be further explained later on today, and you can find the publication available online. Another important element and conclusion that we reached is that, of course, each cross-border context is different. And for this reason, we will soon publish also an annex to the handbook, which is called the border fishes. So the border fishes will provide tailored information for each cross-border context. And this is in order to inform actors on the ground about what are the concrete possibilities for cooperation, but also the obstacles they may face. So this is really tailor-made to each cross-border context. Of course, whenever this annex will be published, we will put this information in the Border Focal Point Network platform on Futurium, as well as on our social media, on our newsletter. So I would invite our participants today to do follow us on our communication channels to stay informed. I would like to mention also another action that was launched by DG REGIO in cooperation with the Climate Pact Ambassador Initiative from DG Clima. This is the Communities for Climate Pilot Action. This initiative is supporting currently 50 communities for climate, encouraging them to engage in citizens' climate actions and to develop and implement innovative ideas in order to build more sustainable and resilient neighborhoods. And among these 50 projects that are being supported, there are also cross-border energy projects. So this gives you a brief overview of the context in which we are working, and also what are the actions that we implemented or are implementing to support them practitioners at local level. I will stop here for now, and I really look for the discussion today. So thank you to all our participants, but also to our panelists.
Thank you, Delia. Thank you very much indeed. That's a very substantial toolbox of support that you were able to describe there. I'm glad. Can I particularly emphasize that you mentioned the Futurium as a mechanism for people to access so many of the, not only the handbook, but so many of the other opportunities for debate and support. Let me now, our first opportunity for participation, all of our participants, do please now join in this first poll where we're going to ask the question of you: what is the most significant benefit brought by cross-border energy communities? And if you would like, please to choose one of the following options, or indeed offer your own additional response to that. So the first is enhanced energy security and energy democracy. Secondly, development of energy-related businesses and job creation. Thirdly, the reduction of external dependence on energy imports. Fourthly, EU integration and cohesion for an European Union energy union. And fifthly, more efficient use of natural resources. That is our question to you. Do please respond. We're going to give you some time to respond while we go to the very exciting opportunity to hear from Bernd Schuh, who's a senior expert at Spatial Foresight and has been part of the consortium which has prepared the Handbook on cross-border energy communities. So, Bernd, please tell us about the Handbook, what our participants would find in the Handbook, and the uses to which it may be put.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Andrew and colleagues, and yeah, very warm hello also from my side this morning for a very cozy breakfast, so to say, table, and let's use this opportunity to also kind of exchange in this way, as Andrew has said, like we would do on at a coffee table for breakfast. So what I'm going to tell you is a little bit the findings of the handbook itself, and you can already go to the next slide where we tried to compile together, as Delia already mentioned, a guidance for practitioners. And the compilation of good practices of the situation on energy cross-border communities. So next slide, please. So when we talk about that, and Delia touched upon it already very nicely in a way, is of course we have to define first what is the object we are talking about. What are actually these cross-border energy communities? This was for us when we compiled the handbook. So when you address somebody, something like a do-it-yourself ticking list of activities, you have to define the addressees. And we all know that energy communities within countries are rather well established. There are thousands of them already operating all over Europe. And in principle, their task and their activities are described as laid down in the two relevant directives of the energy market on the one hand and the renewable energy directive on the other hand. But Achille will certainly dwell on that later on. So what are they doing? They are doing, in principle, a range of activities. So the most important is, of course, that they generate energy. And they do that, in the case of a cross-border energy community, across borders. They do distribute or supply energy across borders, not necessarily renewable only, but any type of energy. That could be electricity, heat, or even gas. And then we also have the next point which is that we have a shared consumption in it. Then there is also the opportunity of energy storage across borders, same as for activities along energy efficiency with the support and advice services to that, connected to that, e-mobility services, or any other cross-border services related to energy, as we said. So that's in a nutshell, so to say, what these energy communities do and which are they defining them in a way. So what would be now interesting to see is, of course, whether this is already working across borders or not, and whether we find energy communities along these lines. And we can go to the next slide already. And when we looked into it, we found that, of course, this handbook will then have to follow up these steps of how these communities are built up. And that's pretty much actually the way any community providing services, not only energy, but we know the same issue about, for instance, local action groups in the context of LEADER, and others are following, which would mean that you need to have a common understanding of your needs in a way, related in this case to cross-border energy, of course. You would need then to develop a joint vision for cooperating on energy. You would then need, of course, the governance and business model for this energy community, which is actually here the real tricky part in a cross-border context. Then, of course, the access to finance and sustainable cross-border kind of working, as well as then organizational setup, management, and then last but not least, also the steps towards social mobilization and the communication part. So the handbook is covering all these 7 steps, so to say. Of course, our dream was that we would do it in a way of kind of, okay, you do that, and then you arrive wonderfully, like it's shown in the picture here, at a very stable tree of a common, of a cross-border energy community. But as Delia has said, the circumstances are very unique. And of course, also the kind of the circumstances with respect to the legal and administrational or administrational frameworks are very different. So next slide, please. So when we talk about, so what are the benefits? Why should actually people cooperate across border in the field of energy? And Delia has mentioned already several, and I won't dwell and repeat them. So it's really this tapping on better natural resource potentials, the pooling of resources, which is especially, and that's therefore also no miracle that, as Delia mentioned, I mean, the first initiatives were kind of oriented towards rural areas, is of course that if I kind of combine a critical mass of energy production and consumption across borders in a remote or rural area, of course, this will benefit all. So this will be creating a win-win situation. And that's more likely in a remote rural area rather than it is in a densely populated area. Although, of course, even there, you could have a very nice mix and balancing of energy production and consumption also across borders if you use the potentials there. Then, of course, this will lead to an improved energy security across borders. You would then have a wider user base, of course, in terms of consumers on both sides. You would, of course, in the end, ideally promote innovation and new business models and develop new development opportunities. Next slide, please. And that also will lead then ideally to the fact that you have a reduced dependency on these imports. Although, sure enough, I mean, this is something which is coming further down the road. Whatever we have observed right now, and we'll come to that in a minute, is of course that you will start rather small. You will try to build up this community element more strongly in the beginning, rather than really going to a large scale kind of substitution of fossil fuels or any energy dependency in the first place. You will then have, of course, in due course, if it's going well, a lower barrier entry for technologies. And you would then, of course, start, if you are successful enough, to complement other cross-border initiatives, especially in the field of cultural cooperation, or as Delia has said, overcoming obstacles in the field of language, into the field of culture as well, of course. And by that you will then increase European identity, solidarity, and better connected cross-border communities. Next slide, please. So this also, of course, leads to the fact. I mean, we observed quite a lot of initiatives, so to say. We didn't observe yet a full-fledged, which ticks all the boxes in terms of activities across cross-border energy communities in Europe. But we observed a lot of initiatives, and thank God later on today we will hear about at least 2 of these very, very nice and promising initiatives. So from Josef, and then also one example from the Spanish-Portuguese border, which of course kind of gives us some optimism and gives us some hope in the end that things are developing in the right direction. Although, of course, still until now, the obstacles are rather the more prevailing factors in there, which will have to be overcome. And the most important, of course, is, or the most striking one, are the legal ones. Meaning that we are, of course, with these two directives I mentioned earlier on, we are on the right path. However, as we know, with the problem with the directive, we have then the issue about transposition into national laws. And we have, in the case of energy, still not, let's say, the dream of a common energy market in Europe as we dream of. I mean, Delia was mentioning it, especially in the fields of medium and low voltage grids. We are far here from a very large connectivity, and the same holds true, of course, then therefore for heat, and the same holds true for especially for biogas. And that's, of course, still prevailing. The other thing is then the administrational obstacles with respect to then the problem of the different levels of governance which are concerned with energy. In most of the cases, these levels are on the national scale and not on the regional, where it would be necessary to foster this cooperation. And then last but not least, of course, it's these issues about the physical technical obstacles. Like we said, on the medium and low voltage level, for instance, in electricity, we hardly have any direct lines across borders in Europe, which is kind of astonishing, but it's a fact. And last but not least, we have these cultural and social cultural obstacles, which Delia already briefly mentioned. Next slide, please. So this is already it, so to say. So what we observed in terms of examples and existing initiatives, it is not a miracle that most of these initiatives are oriented on those borders where actually a strong cooperation tradition, so to say, is anyway focused, which would be the borders between the Benelux countries and Germany, or Germany and France, Germany and Denmark, and others, whereas especially or also between, for instance, Austria and its neighbors to some extent, at least, not all of them, but we certainly see that there are large, let's say, blind spots or still, let's say, leeways for development, opportunities for development in Eastern Europe, especially where you hardly find any initiatives or very little ones. But as I said, the positive aspect which we want to convey with the handbook is that there are initiatives to be found. And what is even more and more important is that there are also, so to say, possibilities to overcome obstacles which we have seen, and that you can learn from each other also already with these existing initiatives. And as soon as you just take one step after the other and do not dream of the full-fledged energy cross-border community right from the beginning, I think there are large opportunities that communities across borders can go along this path and establish, like what we said before, win-win situations for them. Thank you very much.
Bernd, thank you very much. I know we're all most grateful for the work that you and your colleagues have done to give access to this really excellent handbook as an opportunity for people to see, to analyse what is required in order to establish cross-border energy communities and to see some of the practical examples. As you happily say, we will hear from at least two of those practical examples, and maybe some of our colleagues up on the chat will be telling us more, because I can see that we've got colleagues joining us from right across Europe. We asked some questions in a poll before we heard your presentation, Bernd. So let's have a look at what people have said are the benefits. And there's quite a divide of opinion. So, but actually, I think all what we're saying is that these are all important benefits. That is, reduction of external dependency on energy imports, quite understandable in the circumstances of most recent events. Secondly, EU integration and cohesion for an EU energy union, precisely as Delia was reminding us how cross-border communities are the living laboratories of European integration is demonstrating how we can make progress on an energy union. And then additionally, the more efficient use of natural resources, clearly part of our objectives for a more environmentally efficient economy. Energy security and energy democracy also receives its number of people identifying that as a benefit, and indeed some also there for energy related businesses and job creation. So a very interesting, showing us that it's not all just one benefit. There's a range of benefits that people have identified and agree are important for cross-border energy communities. So let us turn to one of the positive examples to which Bernd referred, and here in a video from the EGTC at Duero-Douro on the Spanish-Portuguese border. Let's hear what their experience has been of a cross-border energy community.
Welcome to the Spanish-Portuguese border, or as the people who live here know, the territory where we work, La Raya. We are the European grouping of territorial cooperation Duero-Douro, EGTC Duero-Douro, and we are going to present you in the less than 3 minutes what our project Energía para el Pueblo consists of. The EGTC Duero-Douro was created in 2009, and we work for the integral development of the territory in the rural areas of Western Zamora and Salamanca and the Portuguese areas on the other side, in the region of Trás-os-Montes, Douro and Beira Interior and Serra da Estrela. We seek to manage the territory in an efficient and different way to what is customary. Our headquarters in Spain is located in the municipality of Trabanca, Salamanca, and in Portugal is located in Benposta, Mogadouro, Portugal. Currently, around 200 localities among in both countries are part of our entity. For us, the development and management of the territory involves producing and consuming our own energy and achieve energy independence. With various local councils, we launched the first European electricity cooperative, Duero Energy. With the creation of Duero Energy, we seek to empower people by involving them in decision making and showing them that having the power to decide of energy is the definitive boost for rural areas such as ours. After cooperative, then came the production of energy through solar energy and self consumption, always protecting the environment and using already available infrastructure. Therefore, all photovoltaic panels will be installed on rooftop. In 2019, we tested this model with 3 installations in the municipality of Manzanal de Arriba, Zamora. Having proven its viability in 2021, we designed and launched Energía para el Pueblo, always at the lowest price possible and promoting a fair energy transition. It was at this moment when Duero Energy took the name of European Cross-Border Energy Community. We also promote sustainable mobility, and therefore, in parallel to the installation of photovoltaic plants, we have set up a network of charging points for electric cars. We have 50 charging points, and Banco Santander has been our financial partner since we started the project. Currently, Duero Energy, we have 150 partners, including municipality, companies, and citizens. Our next steps are to continue developing the project with a new phase in the Portuguese area, continue to develop the network of charging points, and continue to integrate new members into the energy community, driven by the benefits of producing, consuming, and managing our own energy.
Marvellous. Thank you very much for that report. I think we had our roving reporter there giving us an opportunity not only for some really fascinating information, but some remarkably attractive views of La Raya and the Spanish-Portuguese border. So thank you very much for that information. And clearly many of the practical benefits to which Bernd was referring in his handbook were illustrated in that example. Let us turn now to our panel. I know Bernd is going to stay with us for our panel discussion later, but also let us hear now from Achille Hannoset from DG ENER, the Energy Directorate General of the European Commission. Please, Achille, can you tell us about how your Directorate General is supporting these energy communities and contributing to the vital objectives of clean energy for Europe, for all Europeans, and what those programs now consist of.
Yes,
Achille.
thank you very much, Andrew. It will be my pleasure to represent DG Energy in this panel discussion. So we've been working on the energy communities actually for quite some time already, since the adoption of the Clean Energy for All Europeans package back in 2018-19. Where we introduced actually enabling frameworks for energy communities, specific type of energy communities that are basically social enterprises that facilitate the cooperation between local actors, municipalities, SMEs, and citizens, of course. And the reason why we recognized and empowered these energy communities with enabling frameworks is because we saw their potential to contribute to multiple objectives of the European Commission, especially when it comes to decarbonizing the energy supply and mitigating climate change. To name three of them, the most prominent ones, of course, renewable energy uptake, which is dual for the energy communities. You mobilize investments, but you also facilitate acceptance by actively involving citizens and local actors in decision-making on energy projects. The citizen participation angle specifically, which is also an objective more broadly supported by the European Commission, and flexibility provision. In this regard, communities can be seen as mini aggregators with the potential of steering the demand and the production of their communities in a way that is potentially grid friendly. So that's largely the components that build up to a decentralized energy system with distributed energy resources that we are evolving to today, and which also brings us to a cross-border context where distribution grids, of course, become more and more important, where in the past interconnectors mainly focused on high voltage lines. We may want to consider as well building out interconnections between our distribution grids as we see capacity constraints emerging at the lower voltage levels with increased penetration of these resources. Now, fast forward to today, we are in the reality of the many crises. Europe has a competitive disadvantage at industrial scale vis-à-vis other major powers, as the Draghi report clearly outlined, namely the US and China. So one of the core objectives, I think, for the new Commission is putting forward the Clean Industrial Deal with a focus on affordability. Now, energy communities, to the extent they produce energy, are also an industrial actor, of course. But most importantly, they can contribute to bringing affordability to local actors, to SMEs, non-industrial SMEs, to local authorities, to citizens as well. And electrification will be a key point there where they can contribute to, but also the incorporation of social economy principles, such as putting value over profits and looking to minimize the impact on the energy bill or reducing the cost of the energy bill rather than generating profits. And of course, I should mention that as part of the mission letter of my Commissioner for Energy and Housing, Dan Jorgensen, it was announced that we will bring forward a citizens' energy package, which aims to enhance the citizen participation, amongst others, of citizens in the energy transition. And for this, of course, energy communities will be a key vehicle. So we also intend to produce an energy communities action plan, mapping out actions that the European Commission, member states, but also communities can take to really make this an integral part of the energy system.
Super, Achille, thank you very much indeed for telling us about the various initiatives that have been taken by the DG Energy. Thank you very much indeed. In addition to our panel discussion, we want to introduce yet one additional very positive example of cross-border energy communities. That is from Josef Pesch, who is part of the Zusamme Solar Colmar project. I wonder, Josef, if you could tell us about that project and the experience that you have on the French-German border in creating a cross-border energy community there. Josef, can we hear you?
Now you can hear me.
Excellent.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting me on this. I'm very pleased that this is more talked about, and I think it's necessary. As I wrote, I'm talking to you from the end of Brittany. Of course, one of these European communities that were long there before national states stopped them. Remember, the language spoken here normally was Breton, which is closely related to Irish and Welsh and Scottish. No one spoke French here for a very long time. And the same goes for, of course, another border region that we are working in, that is the region of Alsace. That had the unfortunate position to be located between two strong powers. They tried to cross that bridge between Germany and France, and the Germans didn't like it and the French didn't like it either. And that's the dilemma I think the Alsatians have. But to talk about energy, yes, there were a few things mentioned, and I'm going over that slide. This is the background of FESA, our cooperative that we founded in the region of Freiburg. Can you go to the next slide? Can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, thank you. You can see in an overview where we are active. That is where FESA is involved in projects. And this also makes very clear the absurdities of borders in Europe, because we are supposed to be a national unity with what is happening in the northeast of Germany, which is a good 1,100 kilometers away from us, geographically quite a distance. But we are not able to provide electricity or power across the border to our nearest neighbors in Alsace. Which are very close to us and where we go all the time, where we have a very close relationship. And the language that is spoken here is Alemannisch, both on the French side in Alsace, as well as in Black Forest and in northern Switzerland. But we have these arbitrary borders. Maybe it's time, in fact, to completely get rid of them. Perish the thought for all the national parties that seem to be doing all this work at the moment. The question, of course, is why do we do it? No, we cannot cross the border electrically. I mean, you can do it in an electric car, but if you want to push electricity from one side to the other, that is quite impossible. I remember that it was also deemed quite impossible 40 years ago to have more than 5% of wind in a system. Technically, this was said to be completely impossible and undoable. Of course, in northern Germany, we now have, on average, about 60%, and on good windy days, we have more than 100. So far, it has not been a technical issue. But these questions always arise because the people who are operating the grid on that scale are the people who don't want to keep the borders basically closed. So I'm not buying this. It's nonsense. So what we did is basically set up energy production, because ultimately it doesn't matter where in Europe we produce clean energy, whether it's in Germany or in France or in Great Britain or in the Netherlands or in Denmark or in Spain or in Portugal. It does not matter at all. We just have to do it, and much of it. And that is, of course, the aim that we are pursuing in what we are doing with our partners in France. Can you go to the next slide, please? Very quickly, this is the background where we came from, strongly citizens-based, and we have co-financed. We started doing the cross-border co-finance in 2004. Next slide, please. These are one of the projects that we did in Freiburg, and you see 1995, the first one, big one, 100K huge at the time. Next slide, please. And an energy community, again, something that was said to be quite impossible, to do more than 100% in renewable energies. We did this in Black Forest. We are now, I think, well beyond the 280% because they've just repowered the wind turbines. Next slide, please. And this is where we started with the cross-border cooperation with Zusamme Colmar. Zusamme means together, very simply. Zusamme is the word that they use in Alsace. So it's part of Alemannisch. It's not German, although it looks German, because we said, okay, you are too small to do it. Perhaps we are too small to do it too. But if we join forces, we can do the 400K in one go. And we did on 4 different roofs. And we founded a SAR for this, a commercial company in which we own the shares, because again, it was quite impossible for the German cooperative to get finance in France. Yes, we can talk to the banks in Alsace. They know what a German Genossenschaft is. As soon as the decision making is done, which is happens in Paris, that ends. Because the bankers there don't know what a German Genossenschaft is, and so you don't get finance. This was a big, big headache, and we just said, okay, if we can't do it that way, we'll do it another one. We are working with Energy Partagé, and we have co-financed it with them. And by now we have about 900 kilowatts in solar production. We wanted more, but again, things like COVID intervened, which did not make cross-border cooperation any easier. Can you give me the next slide, please? This is the one we have, the 2 we have in Brittany that we built during COVID anyway, and also connected because of local help. And there it's very helpful to have local friends who do stuff like this. We have one Breton who worked as an electricity master electrician in Germany for 30 years, speaks German excellently, and he managed to get us connected because we couldn't go at the time. This is what the project is on the farm, very close to the coast, not far away from here. And we have managed to start cooperation here with a local cooperative, Centrale Villageoise West Conway, CBOC, that are also doing community projects here in Finisterre. Can you give me the next slide, please? Of course, being working in Finisterre, the question was why Finisterre? It's so far away from Freiburg or from Merzhausen, where we are. Yes, true, but again, this border is completely arbitrary. We have done projects close to the Polish border that is just as far away from us as is Finisterre. So why? The question for me was not why, but why not? And of course, that is a motto almost of renewable energies that I have seen. And I'm happy to report that after 10 years of after starting this in 2014, we are still there. That is a big surprise to me because by no means was that a certainty. We are still doing it. We are expanding. We want to do more, but we are running now, of course, into this massive problems with legislation changing in France, making particularly citizens' participation, small projects, much more difficult now. We don't even know exactly what the fallout will be. And of course, we are seeing a lot of restrictions, and we're seeing the same restrictions in Germany. This simply has to change. I mean, if you change the system all the time, this is putting particularly small and community projects under an enormous amount of stress, and it is threatening our projects. We are planning to do 380 kilowatts in Kergaledin in the same on the same farm. We only did 100 because this was the restriction France had before COVID. Then they were lifted, now they're back. And we want to do another project which also would fall into that. We want to strengthen the cooperation further. But of course, if we can't do projects anymore, and if we can't get projects financed and we can't get projects insured, this is, of course, a massive threat to us. And cross-border finance, forget it. Cross-border insurance, forget it. So there is a lot of work to do to make all these things a lot easier. For instance, grid connections for citizens projects should be free. Why do we have to pay for connection? If I'm EDF and if I'm building a big plant like Flamerville, which is 4 times as expensive as originally planned, I get the connection basically thrown in. Well, it doesn't matter because the price of the plant is so high. Yes, but if I do it as a citizen, I strengthen the network by decentralized production, and yet I have to pay for the connection. Why? It's much easier for the grid operator to finance that cost than for us from project finance, and so on and so on. So I must admit I'm not happy about the recent development that we are seeing, and I'm not happy about the progress. Yes, we are making progress in Europe with all this, but it's much too slow. We need to do a lot more. And I keep telling politicians all the time, especially here in Brittany, 0.5 meter of sea level rise, guys, we are in trouble. 1 meter of sea level rise, and this is of course true of all the coastal countries, Denmark, Holland, Great Britain, France, Northern Germany, 1 meter of sea level rise, and we're in big trouble. So we need to get on and do it faster, but I don't see that happening. So I'm on the one hand very happy about being still there and doing it and doing more, but I'm also seeing that we are overall not doing enough. And I would wish that that this would be seen and that we would set our focus our minds. The war in Ukraine has shown us what it means to be dependent on big powers for our energy. I did not want gas from Russia. I did not want oil from Saudi Arabia or from the States. We can do it ourselves. Let's do it.
Josef, thank you very much indeed. I know all of us will be very appreciative of both of the practical examples that you have given us of what is possible when you take, as you say, apply the question why not rather than the question why, but also very appreciative of the challenges that you have outlined and what needs still to be done. And those challenges I know will be very much taken on board by all of our participants. Can I give our participants a chance themselves now in the second of our polls, but it's not a set of questions to which we're giving you answers. It's a question to which we hope you will give us your own views, just in 1, 2, or 3 words. The question is, what form of support is most needed at local level to establish a cross-border energy project? And we'll build up on screen a bit of a word cloud of the responses that you give us. What form of support is most needed at local level? Just in 1, 2, or 3 words, and then we'll try and build it up. If you can do it in 1 word, that's even better because it enables the word cloud to build up. And of course, if you see something on the word cloud that you think is the right answer, then you are able to add it yourself, and that will bring that to greater prominence. Now, are we able, please, to bring up the word cloud? We have a number of responses, and they're coming in steadily. I can see a number of responses there. Can we see it coming up as a cloud, word cloud yet? Let's see if we can bring it up. There are many options, everything from investment, legal forms, grid networks, grid connections, consumer links, community work, many kinds of support that might be needed. So we have 37 responses. Are we able to see those responses coming up in a word cloud yet? I'm told everyone is seeing the cloud except me.
I'm not seeing it either.
No, we're not seeing the cloud. Perhaps you can you share? Martina, can you share the cloud? See what we can find. We're not finding it at the moment. Martina, can we? Okay, let's. We've got our panelists on board. Let's talk about those. And if at some point, Martina, you can share the cloud so we, the panelists, can see it, that will be extremely helpful. But thank you all. We've 48 responses, so we are gathering those responses even as we go on to talk. I wonder, Josef, if I could just come back to you for a moment with a question about the various opportunities that you were describing. What has that meant from the point of view of the local communities where the community energy projects are taking place? Do they secure more accessible and affordable energy themselves? Is there a direct benefit to consumers that has encouraged these communities to adopt this?
This would, of course, be ideal. I've not seen it either in Germany or France, because what we have, of course, is a national system, and the feed-in tariff is a national system. So the money, the electricity goes into the big pool, and then is redistributed across the system, and it's not visible. To me, if you take this regional approach seriously, those regions that are producing close to 100% should see the benefits in lower energy prices. At least they're not using a lot of grid, for instance, so the grid cost should be lower. I think this is just about being implemented in Germany. I've not seen it in France. But this, of course, would be very helpful. Selling electricity locally. Yes, this is possible in France. So far, it's not been possible in Germany. But again, the process for doing it is extremely cumbersome. So we need to simplify rules. We need clear priorities. And yes, people should be able to use their local resources. Unless you do autoconsumption, this is hardly possible. And autoconsumption, at least in France, is strongly discouraged. If you do this on your house, put a solar plant on top of your house and try to use most of the energy yourself and sell the rest, your tariff goes from 11 cents for the injected energy to 4. 4 is a joke. Sorry, this is below the market price for energy on the big national market. Of course, it's not sustainable. I see this as a strong discouragement of doing exactly that. So the local communities do not benefit enough.
That's very interesting. Achille, I wonder if I could bring you in as well, because you were talking about the that there are high voltage distribution links. But on a number of occasions, we've had references to the lack of medium and low voltage distribution links. And it's something that people have said we need to develop in order to enable cross-border energy communities to share energy more effectively. Is there a plan under the proposals coming forward for investing in those kind of distribution links?
Yes. Thank you very much, Andrew. Just to start with, the Clean Industrial Deal, the Affordable Energy Action Plan will come forth in Q1 of 2025. I'm not in a position to disclose anything that will be undertaken there that is not already public knowledge, first and foremost. But that doesn't hold me back to actually talk about what we're already doing and what we already have in place to help these cross-border energy infrastructure to develop. So we have the most prominently, I think, the connecting grid infrastructure, the connecting energy facility, to connect grid infrastructure across Europe. So we have 25.8 billion euros for that, which is also partly coming from the cohesion fund. And there we focus on trans-European transport networks, which includes distribution systems. Admittedly, mostly the focus has been on transmission grids, but in principle, cross-border energy communities can apply for this funding to also build cross-border infrastructure. So that's an important one to highlight. In addition, of course, we have the Interreg program, we have the ERDF. In principle, member states can also make use of the ERDF for similar purposes. So in terms of access to funding, the Commission is certainly taking action here already, and let's see whether we can step it up moving forward as well. I wanted to also get back a little bit to the trading remark that was made by Josef. In this regard, we have energy sharing legislation now that is adopted. That will need to be implemented by the 17th of July 2026, and that should allow active customers, as you described them, Josef, with solar PV on their rooftop, to share this with other consumers at a price that they deem is reflecting the value of the energy that they share. So disentangling this let's say dependency on suppliers to provide you value for your surplus electricity. And I think that's a positive development, which I hope to also see implemented and materialize in France. In this regard, I think what is important is that we have a standardized approach to energy sharing, and the Commission will also issue guidance here for the member states. So, of course, we cannot force member states to align their procedures, but we can facilitate them sitting together in a room and learning from each other and exchanging on how they want to regulate energy sharing, and provide a minimum standardized approach at our level that would make it easier or cut transaction costs to set up these projects. Now, of course, if we talk about trading in a cross-border context, we have to talk about bidding zones as well. And here, energy sharing is enabled within a single bidding zone, or anything more limited, geographically speaking. However, the bidding zones themselves, they can be subject to review. And Article 14 of the Electricity Regulation provides a framework for this review to take place. And one of the aims also of reviewing the bidding zone, or putting in place the configuration of a bidding zone, is to maximize cross-zonal trading opportunities. So potentially, as we move forward, it could be that some of the member states want to review their bidding zone, which would not be surprising given the increasing constraints in terms of grid capacity that we're facing. A bidding zone takes the assumption there are no capacity constraints whatsoever. It's the copper plate based principle, which is unfortunately slightly outdated today in some countries. So maybe there's an opportunity there to be explored, to see how we can cooperate at the decentralized level as well in a cross-zonal manner. But that's just thinking very ambitiously.
Thank you very much. That is very interesting. I want a last question, I'm afraid, because time is against us, but I just wanted to give you a chance, listening not least to what Josef was describing. Is there an opportunity not only for the cross-border energy communities to be established in specific geographical locations, but for there to be effectively a cross-border European community, a community of communities, as it were, a sort of clearinghouse of working from community energy projects across, as Josef was describing, really dispensing with borders altogether for these purposes?
No, thanks a lot. And very quickly, I mean, I highly appreciated whatever Josef said, and I have to, of course, underline all the problems he has mentioned. They are observable all over Europe, of course. But to return to your question, I mean, in principle, and if we listen now to what Achille was saying in terms of the initiatives taken, and still the concerns from Josef with respect to, okay, this is too little, too late in a way. I agree to both of them. I mean, the only way out would be that you find niches actually which are enabled by the legal framework and leads to cooperation across borders, but rather in the idea of something like islands of sustainability, so that you create island solutions in a way, your small little, in a way, grid solutions, which might work across borders very well, because then you can really benefit from the advantages from both sides of the borders. So that would be a way out. Of course, you might say, I mean, this is nothing new, because we know about these island ideas already from the 80s last century, if you think about it. And we already had there very, let's say, dramatic failure cases as well. But still, I mean, it might be a step forward in the direction, as Josef was kind of correctly pointing out. I mean, we have to do something. I mean, it's and you do it within the framework. And of course, whatever Achille was saying, I mean, is still, of course, coming up. But I mean, I think in the discussion, it was very well pointed out. As long as we have the market structures of energy in the way we have it right now, and that goes very well in the line of especially grid ownership, as long as we don't intervene there too much, of course, I mean, we will always kind of be restricted, like what Achille was saying, that we sit together in a room and talk and hope that we listen and learn from each other. Although I agree with Josef here, the hopes are maybe limited, especially looking into the political landscape of Europe right now. So I think it's best to rely on the initiatives on the ground. So what people find as a benefit for themselves on the ground, as hard as that may seem, as Josef was describing, but still, I think if you create this benefit on both sides of the border, like, for instance, an island solution, I think then it might be first little step towards a cross-border energy community.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid time is against us, but I do want to take an opportunity just to, if Martina would be kind enough to share the word cloud, which she confidently assures me that she is capable of doing now. Oh, Luana.
Hey, yay.
So, legal obstacles. Yes, absolutely. So we've seen a lot of that. Technical assistance. Yes, we've heard about that. We've got a lot of so political support in managing or overcoming the legal obstacles is the message that comes most prominently out of the word cloud on the local support that is required. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks, Luana, for sharing that. Before we close, can I say just one thing myself, which is a big thank you to all of our presenters this morning, to Bernd, of course, particularly for the work that has been done on the handbook. And you can see people are sharing references on the Futurium on the chat for the Futurium, for the debate to be continued and for access to the handbook and the many practical examples that are there. Very grateful to Achille and indeed to Josef for their really valuable contributions to the discussion. As you could hear, this discussion could and should and will, no doubt, develop in the weeks and months ahead, not least because the handbook, of course, gives people a practical base for bringing forward new initiatives, and I hope that's exactly what will happen. A thank you to, I neglected to mention our Ana Belén Lopez, our roving reporter on the Duero-Douro border. Thank you to her, but not least, thank you to our colleagues at DG REGIO, and I'm going to give the last word to Delia, please.
Many thanks, dear Andrew, and thank you to all our panelists for your valuable contributions. I think the debate today has been very rich, and it's also extremely helpful for us to hear What is then the support needed on the ground? We've seen clearly from this last poll, the legal support emerged as the most pressing and important for people at local level. We have had experience from Josef that also helps us understand what is it that we can better do. And what emerges, I believe, is that more work and efforts are really needed to enable this type of initiatives than to steam on the territory. And because of this, I want to flag, first of all, our B-Solutions initiative that does provide legal support whenever it comes to legal and administrative border obstacles. I've seen the link being shared in the chat. So I would invite really our people on the ground to make use of such tools. The Border Focal Point Network is always there for you to share good practices and knowledge. So I also encourage you to keep the discussion going. And I would like to conclude by saying that indeed more work and efforts are needed. And we are seeing that this is needed at all levels of governance, from the European level to national, regional, and local level. And we will keep on working on the topic. So you will see further communications from us on actions possibly launched on our platform. So I encourage you to follow us. But I also want to call for your help. Also, your support on the ground is needed. It's a joint cooperation exercise that we do together. And lastly, just a big thank you to our consortium who developed the handbooks. So Spatial, Foresight, ERAC, and ENER Consult, our colleagues from ENER and Achille in particular for his good cooperation over the years. And of course, our testimonials, Josef and Anna, together with the Border Focal Point Network team.
Thank you so much, Delia. And thank you once again to all. And not least, of course, thank you to all of our participants joining us from right across Europe. Thank you for being with us this morning. Do have a good day. Do see us again soon for the next Beyond Borders breakfast debate in the Border Focal Point Network. We've been grateful to have you with us this morning. See you again soon. Bye-bye for now.